to the Conscious Crew podcast. I'm DJ Marty, and today we have our special guest here from Inner Space, Brandy, and as always, Rodney Ryan down in the end. Today's topic is going to be self-mastery. You brought this to the table. What do you have for us today?
Oh, so much.
Awesome.
A lot of people will say, like, what is self-mastery? And then they expect me to, like, say the definition of it. Mm. And I actually don't even know the real definition. I've never even looked it up. Right. Self-mastery. It's just something that, along the years, I always tried to figure out what I was doing. What do I have to offer, you know? And along this journey of trying to figure out what I have to offer the world, I was working on myself constantly. People would say, like, oh, how do you do what you do? And how do you live the way you live and think the way that you think? And I would just always have these breadcrumbs and these bits of things for people, you know, and they'd be like, oh, that's great, you know, follow that breadcrumb and do that thing. And it was actually just over the past year that I realized, like, that topic is, like, self-mastery of myself. And I also got into this big imposter syndrome, which I think everybody's guilty of. You know, who am I to share about this? Who am I to talk about whatever topic I feel passionate about, or that I know that I'm really passionate about? And I even had it come up this morning. I was talking to a friend on a voice text, and I said, oh man, that imposter syndrome popped up in me today. Like, who am I to talk about self-mastery? And then I instantly was able to, like, transmute that and alchemize it and be like, well, it's just about myself. It's what I've been doing for myself, the tools that I've been using for myself.
Absolutely.
Sharing my story. So nobody is better at sharing their own self-mastery than their self.
Right.
Sure.
And in the collective, if we're all just other selves, how can we not benefit by sharing?
Sure. So we're just sharing our experience, right?
Yeah.
So who better to do that than
yourself?
Right.
Yeah. So it's not like, here's how to accomplish self-mastery.
Here's some things that maybe worked for me.
Yeah. And what's working for you, and tell me about it, and how, is there a breadcrumb there for me that I can, you know, pick up for my own self? That's what we're all doing.
I agree.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, well, a lot of people talk about enlightenment. I don't think there's ever a place that you reach as far as enlightenment. It's like as soon as you get to a plateau where you're like, oh, I know this, I'm feeling good about this, well, then you're going to expand again. So it's self-mastery is continuous.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's almost infinite because as far as you want to go with it within your own life, you know.
Yeah.
As long as you keep seeking, right? Seeking more information. You're not putting those blocks up in your life and say, oh, I've got this figured out. Yeah. You know, as long as you're continuing on your own journey.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
I agree with that. So we're so proud that you're one of our sponsors, and you've really helped us in marketing and things over at Inner Space for our Conscious Kickback that's coming up on March 13th. If you didn't know, be sure to check that out on our Facebook page. But I've really noticed that you guys are doing a lot of great things over at Inner Space, from the Salt Lounge to tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you guys offer over at Inner Space.
Yeah. Well, Inner Space we call it an integration center for self-mastery.
Okay.
A whole bunch of tools, just a big building full of tools for people to come and experience for their own selves.
Beautiful building.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I loved it.
Thank you. It's the old Owen Christo building. So sometimes people are like, ooh, that building. You know, older generations that might have experience with getting their cars towed.
Right.
No.
We don't tow cars.
That is that building. I didn't even recognize it.
Transmuted the energy of the building. So, but we have a 6,000 square foot building that has a movement space that also doubles as like a large workshop and retreat space. It's 1,300 square foot. Our movement classes really focus on releasing trauma trapped in the body. So it's much more than fitness. It's like working out your soul, right? Instead of just working out your body.
Absolutely.
We have mindfulness classes. We have lots of sound modalities that go on there. Sound baths. We have sound showers. We have sound plus breath. Lots of very easy to step into things go on in that space. For people don't have to, they can just show up for themselves without expectation of having to do a lot of work. It's very easy to lay there and feel sound.
Yeah,
and feel
absolutely.
and feel the benefits. And then from that, people think, wow, that felt really good. And here's my experience during that. And this is what came up for me. And from there, they can kind of do their own self-exploration. So other parts of the building, we have a workshop space, which is tables and chairs set up. It's really open. We have murals painted in there by Zachary Brown. He's a local visionary artist.
Oh, really?
You can find him on Instagram, Visionary Voyager.
Okay.
He did all the murals inside of our building. But in this workshop
Those
space...
are neat.
Yeah.
I actually remember seeing a lot of those.
Yeah. Oh, they're just amazing. And his work is just extraordinary. We hope to have the murals evolve as our building and the consciousness of the collective evolves too.
Awesome.
But in this workshop space, it's for hands-on, creative, get messy, tap into your inner child, that type of thing. We have another space that we call the Flex Room, and it's for more intimate workshops. It's like a big, cozy living room feel, you know, so that you're not like feeling like you're in this cold, open, big space trying to gather this really expansive information about your own self.
Right.
So it's very comfortable in that space, and we also have studios in the back where we have practitioners that do one-on-one modalities, different healing modalities, massage, Reiki. We have a shamanic practitioner, a biodynamic breathwork practitioner, which I think she's the only one in Iowa. And then we have a chiropractor back there who specializes on like trapped emotions in the body. Not just like you need adjusted, this vertebrae hurts, but like here's the energetics behind why that disc keeps slipping. Is this what's going on in your life? You know, she's a nervous system doctor instead of just, you know, she's not just working on your bones. She's working on your nervous system, keeping you in parasympathetic state versus sympathetic. So staying in that rest and digest and out of that fight or flight as much as possible.
Awesome.
That's kind of the whole goal of the whole building.
Right.
We have a woman who's moving in March. She does tarot readings, and she also does, she has so many. She has an apothecary. We have just so many amazing individual practitioners back there. We also have 3 studios that are for rent daily or hourly. And these are these studios are for people who are just stepping into their practice or working part-time and don't want to commit to a full studio, but want to have that professional environment. Like, I have this modality, I want to do it. I don't have the confidence or the clientele necessarily to like open up my own shop.
Right,
or maybe that people don't even want to have that responsibility.
Yeah.
Right.
Or they don't want to do it out of their house. So we have that at very affordable rates for hourly and daily. And we did that because when Alicia, the other owner, and I were kind of stepping into our modalities years ago, working out of our house, or Alicia would rent a space that was almost the same price that she would have to charge a client.
Right.
So, like, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So a lot of the creation of Inner Space was how can we support not only the public with their growth and evolution and self-mastery, but the practitioners,
right,
and what they want to do.
That's amazing. So that's awesome. So I have a question. So where did your journey in the conscious type of business start? What got you interested in that?
So,
that's probably a long story, but I want to hear it.
No, that's fine. When I was younger, I, like really little, I kept having people say like, oh, you have like these gifts, or I would speak something before somebody would say something, and I didn't have any idea because I was little, and they'd be like, why did you just say that, you know? And I remember one really, I don't remember what I said but I was camping, and my dad and mom's friend was there, and he was like being really theatrical by the bonfire. And all of a sudden, I, like, dropped down to my knees and started yelling, like, Stella! And they were like, you just completed what he was doing. Like, the theatrics that he was doing. And I had no idea. I just felt like I should do that. Yeah. I was, like, 6 or 7, you know?
That's
like,
amazing.
I was little. I had no idea. So all these little things kept popping up. And then, you know, eventually society tells you that that's not okay. You know, you have all this conditioning that's layered on top of your gifts, and it's like, that's not okay, turn that off, it's not okay to show that. You know, it goes all the way back to, like, women were burned for showing their gifts, of even just learning how to work with herbal medicines.
Right. Oh yeah. I love the time that we live in because it's an information age, and
Yes.
it's not everything isn't as, you know, what's the word I'm looking
Taboo
for?
or-
Taboo.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. That's a perfect word.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're moving as humankind.
Yeah.
We're moving towards a more enlightened stage.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And supporting everybody along the way instead of saying, oh, no, turn that light off. Don't show that light, you know, or dim that just a little bit. It's more like, no, shine, baby. Like, you know, let it out. So it's really, I have no hard feelings for that part of my life where it was like, and I don't even know who said turn it off, but it's just layers upon layers. And then
Society told you that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it is.
and then growing up, and I had ADD and all these things, and they had me go through these tests, these IQ tests. My IQ was super high when I was little, and then they just kept, you know, I got a little bit older, and they medicated me, and then I got smart and realized I could sell my medication. You know, like I was like, how can I?
Right,
you know,
right.
I was always kind of like one step ahead, like how can
Right, yeah.
And then from that, I turned to using cocaine, and I was hard into drugs in high school and out right after high school. And I was just going down this place that was just not good, and I knew that it wasn't, and I was able to pull myself out of that without any like rehab or anything. It was just like one day I was like, this is not okay, you know?
That's
and
awesome.
From that, I was a hairdresser for 15 years. I struggled on and off with alcohol, still trying to cap that. You know, I had these gifts coming out, and there was something that was like, no, you know, this conditioning of like, dim that, you know, numb yourself, get back down to the level of where, you know, not like there's hierarchy or anything, but to the level of the collective consciousness for a while, because you're not ready to. People aren't ready for all of that. And so over the past 15 years, I was a hairdresser. I would stand behind the chair and talk to people, and like going to the hairdresser is like going to a counselor, right? Or
Absolutely.
a therapist.
Yeah, absolutely.
You sit down in the chair and you just kind of let it all out. And what I started to realize, especially after I had my son, it like opened up a portal inside of me. You know, as women and men, we all have a womb space. Even men do, and it's the creation, the creatrix of everything that is. And so after I had my son, this portal opened up, and I noticed when I was standing behind the chair talking to people and they were telling me things, I would start to receive messages, and I would just give them the message, and I didn't know where it was coming from, but I would just, hey, here, this is for you, and it was kind of like, wow, how did you know that, or how did you know to say that? And I didn't know, but I was just unfiltered. Here it is.
Intuitive.
And yeah.
Sounds very intuitive.
Yeah. And it was a very safe space for me to do that because I was one-on-one in my studio. Nobody else could hear me or, you know, and it was just comfortable. And then I recognized how comfortable I was getting, and then I was like, well, it's time to grow.
Yeah.
You know, you just have those steps and
absolutely.
those stages where you're getting those growing pains and everything's pulling at you that, yes, this is what you were supposed to be doing in the time. So I never look back and say, oh, why did I do that for so long? But it was like, it's time to shift. It's time to evolve. It's time to start taking care of yourself instead of everybody who's behind the chair.
Definitely.
And then that's when I kind of stepped into that's self-mastery, like just constantly taking care of myself. A lot of it was just coping with being an empath and taking on everybody's shit pretty much when I was standing behind the chair. I didn't mind it. Right. I would gladly take it with love, but I had to like do all this work to like, that's not mine.
Protect your energy.
Yeah.
Right.
And then through that process, more started unfolding, and I started attending more workshops and visiting different healers, different modalities. And then I started stepping up my game and going to really big retreats and intensives and immersions and traveling everywhere to gather more information, because we didn't have that here.
Right.
You know? Or we did, but people weren't stepping into it yet.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And
Let me ask you a question. So, along the lines of the, like, doing the retreats, okay, the person I learned Reiki from,
Yeah.
she is always telling me, well, you do everything on your own. You don't study with anybody else. Do you feel that there is an advantage to studying with other people? Or do you feel like, I mean, not that there's a right or wrong, but I guess that there's advantages to both ways. Which one do you think would be more effective to somebody who is, just for example, say they're hearing the Conscious Crew podcast and they're like, okay, so that's interesting, I want to learn. Do you suggest people go out on their own and learn first, or do you suggest them to get with a group of people?
I guess it could go either way. I did a lot of self-exploration because none of this stuff was brought to the light when I started my journey. So a lot of it had to be, I was like digging and finding, and I also kind of got this visual when you asked me that question of somebody who's like drowning. Which is what how a lot of society feels with anxiety and depression and this weight. And it's like asking somebody who's drowning if they want help to get out of the water or if they want to try to get out of the water by themselves.
Right.
So it's not that I ever was seeking a teacher. I don't have like a specific teacher. I have lots of mentors. But I went to the retreats and the immersions for myself to help me clear space so I could access more information on my own. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
And also the connections with the people there. Because there's times that I've been to things and it's like the content or the information might not be new to me or might not be something I'm incredibly interested in, but there's a connection that I've made there, this little golden nugget. That's why I always talk about like this little golden nugget. Even if you've already, done your ABCs and and you don't want to go to an ABC class, but like the basics of mastering yourself. Let's see, there's like this really great quote we share it sometimes on Interspace, like the mastery of anything is the basics well done. So
I like that. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love
revisiting that. Like we're never too good to revisit things. And so I would say for somebody who's listening and might be like, how do I, where do I start? What do I do? That's exactly why we created Inner Space.
Perfect.
And that's exactly why we offer the variety of things that we offer, is because not one size fits all. We're not one center for one type of meditation.
And you're not trying to tell, well, this is the only way to get where you want to be.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Or here's where you want to be.
Yeah.
Even. Not even telling you where you want to be.
Right.
It's like, hey, come explore the different parts of yourself. Alicia and I created this because this is something we wish would have existed when we had started.
That's how you know you're on the right track, because you're following your own journey, providing things that you wish that you had had.
Yeah.
For me, it's like listening to that voice. So everyone has that voice, like you're saying, should I go to a group? Should I go? I would just follow the trail, like you said, the breadcrumbs. That's kind of what I've always done. I always consider myself a maven of like continual learning, always trying to learn more. If I hear something, okay, what exactly does that mean? So I'll dive further into that. Or if an opportunity comes my way or crosses my path, then I'll follow that. So I think that's important for people to kind of just follow your own journey. If you have a thought, man, I really wish I knew more about this. Like, don't wait. Find a way to make that. Yeah, find a way to go ahead and follow that thought.
And without judgment. That's so, everybody, I'm guilty of it. Every single person judges themselves or judges their thoughts. Or, I'm curious about that, but no, this. Or, but my grandmother said this. Or also checking in with yourself and who's answering you is the big thing. When you ask yourself a question, who's answering? Is it your conditioning? Is it your higher self? Is it whatever you want to call it? Who is answering the question? And is that answer there to support you, or is it there to like keep you comfortable or sabotage you from being the expansive being of love that you are?
Right. I always call it like following your knowing.
Yes.
Yeah.
To
go back to what we were talking about with the groups and things and doing things on my own. I've always been myself as an individual. I'm very, there's something in me that's rebellious. So if I read something or study something, I'll be like, okay, I like that. That's crap.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's crap. This helps me. The rest of this is their story.
Yeah.
And being aware of that and, acknowledging that, that's okay. You're not going to be able to get in your truth from anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Right?
I love that too.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how even just you were using your hands and like setting the things aside,
Mm-hmm.
because that's all we have to do is if something doesn't resonate with us, we can just set it aside. We don't have to even expend any energy talking to other people about how that's not for us or anything like that. It's just like, nope, not for me.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the simplest thing, if someone's like, how do I even check in with if something's for me? What does checking in even mean? It's like, pick up a can of soda and a bottle of water and ask yourself which one you should have. Not which one you want, but which one you should have. Like, that's the easiest thing to gauge your own radar if you're like, I have no idea.
I love that.
Some people will even hear like, oh, just check in with yourself, and they're like, I don't know.
Well, how do I check? Yeah, how do I check?
That
Yeah, right.
Am I supposed to like text myself?
And that's kind of like where meditation would come in. You know, you talked about clearing your mind, creating space for yourself to kind of listen to your own intuition, or hear your inner voice, your spirit, energy, whatever you want to call it. Just allowing that to kind of resonate with you, and then check your moral compass and kind of go that direction.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm big with visuals and like analogies of things, and every time, so I kind of visualized myself as this like overstuffed suitcase, right? At such a young age, I was just full, couldn't take in anything else, and it's like every time that I would say yes to myself and try something new, or start with meditation. I started with meditation on YouTube, listening to mantra-based Om Mani Padme Hum, and I would just say that I would try that. And then I stepped into silent mantra on my own, 20 minutes twice a day, and my meditation journey kind of evolved. And as I said yes to myself, it would be like somebody was taking a piece out of the bag, taking a piece, what wasn't needed or what I didn't need anymore. It wasn't like I never needed it. It was there for a reason. I just didn't need it anymore. And then it opened up all this space in this suitcase for all this new to come in, this unknown to come into me.
Like that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's also like you could look at places where you maybe need some advancement or some self-work. Maybe if you're struggling financially, or you're angry, just wherever, relationships, those different areas, you can look to kind of study in those areas. So not always just listening, but if you're not quite getting those intuitive messages, then you can just maybe look into where you feel like you need more help.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And starting small. I think we're all getting those messages. It's just what we're judging them as in our mind.
Yeah, there we go. I agree with that. How they're coming in, or judging what they're saying, or being fearful of those thoughts and things, or things that we think we shouldn't look at, parts of ourselves that we shouldn't look at. Those are the parts that we need to look at. That's where you should go. That nothing is taboo anymore.
Right. What would you define the word judgment as? Like, yeah, if somebody was like, okay, so if you're judging, what would be a description of that?
Or I think you're going back to we had this discussion once last week, right?
Yeah.
So we've been kind of bouncing this.
Yeah.
And me and Rodney kind of had different perspectives on this. If I could just kind of get
absolutely.
a little bit. So Rodney said that your perspective, if I'm not wrong, is that you think that judgment is a negative connotation.
I wouldn't say it's negative. It's if I had to describe it to someone, it would be an emotionally charged point of view.
Okay. And on my perspective, I was saying kind of like everyone has a judgment of sorts. Like you see someone, it's you would like to say that, or maybe working towards not judging. But if you see someone, you may have a judgment of them, and so.
We want your perspective. What's
my
your perspective on that?
Of what a judgment is?
Yeah, or just judgment in general.
Judgment in general. Anytime you look at something and it's not, and you're not thinking with love, or compassion.
I love that. Perfect.
And then, also, if you're having a moment where you're feeling judgment, where you can't look at something with compassion and love, even the most darkest things deserve that. They deserve it the most. But also, then if you can't, then what part of that you're seeing in someone else that you are making a judgment on, are you not having love and compassion for yourself for?
I've heard that school of thought where if say I don't like something about somebody, that there's an element of that in myself.
It's mirrored, yeah. But also, it is like one of the, nothing's so easy, but I say an easy tool is self-reflection of not necessarily that exact situation or that exact scenario, but what is kind of triggering that judgment of how somebody did something or how you think it should have been done, or their choices are not okay, but they're their own choices. So what choices in my life am I making that maybe I'm not okay with, and what do I need to love on myself more? What parts need a little bit more?
Beautiful.
Do you know who Ram Dass is?
Ram Dass? I know who he is, but I haven't studied him much.
Oh, so we just showed his newest documentary film at Inner Space. We'll probably have another showing soon. But he has a philosophy on looking at other people. I'm not quoting him verbatim. So when you go outside and you see a tree and it's like crinkled and crooked, and you always find the beauty in it, and you're like, oh, that tree's like that, and that one's a little smaller, and that's okay, and that one's really big and beautiful, but they're all beautiful. We don't go outside and judge trees. We just have an awareness and recognize that they're all different and they're all doing their own thing.
So why do we do that to people?
So then, so people are trees. Just go look at people like trees.
Yeah.
They're about judgment.
Right. That's beautiful. I love that.
Look at people like trees.
Yep.
It's so simple. The more that what I'm learning this year for myself is like to simplify and going back to the basics. And the more we can simplify things, the more that we can get into our heart and out of our head. When there's a situation that feels really complicated, I'm like, what needs to be simplified here? And then I take a moment and just kind of get back into my heart space, and it's a lot smoother to simplify.
Yeah.
Something I've noticed is controlling your surroundings. So, if you're around negativity, if you're watching, even in your music, different things, we are at least a certain aspect, we're a product of our environment. We pick up from things around us. So I would say part of self-mastery is kind of like controlling your environment around you, and in that way you're not kind of basking in this a lifestyle that you don't want to pursue. I think that's an important aspect. And as far as being able to clear that space and those things, I feel like that's done wonders for me to, like you said, like we've all been through different things in our life, and once you can get out of that space and surround yourself either in your own sanctuary and be able to kind of, if you're into whatever your passions are, live in those and live around people that are in those. Even down to social media. I used to have a lot of people online and different videos that are negative, people fighting and all this different nonsense. And once I removed all of those away, and I said, well, I'm really into DJing, so I'm only going to follow close friends, supportive people, DJs, mentors, people that are doing the things that I want to do. It really kind of changed my life in a way of being able to just have my mental space clear and focused on what I want to pursue.
And you'll watch the world around you change. Everything will kind of, because you're changing your frequency, your vibration, and everything will match that,
right,
or fall off.
And then, like you said, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like you're saying, like things just pop up in alignment with what you're doing, as long as you're living in your pursuits.
Because we have unlimited support. Unlimited support. It's out there. It's ourselves that gets in the way of thinking that we don't, or thinking that we're not good enough or unworthy of, it's there. It's just a matter of, like you mentioned, like kind of clearing that space around you. And there's a lot of work that goes into that too, because maybe you recognize that a relationship that you have with a very close family member doesn't fit in your boundaries that you set for
I've
yourself.
thought about that before, and so like, of course you need to still associate with them, but just maybe in different ways.
Right, in different ways.
Limited amounts of time.
And that's where the work comes in that we have to do on ourselves. That's why it's not like we can't run around changing other people.
Yep.
That's where we have to do
That
the work
stinks,
on ourselves.
That's one of the struggles I went through.
It is. You can't control other people's choices.
Right.
That's a struggle that I've dealt with, because like I'm a pretty earthy person, and so the way that I find my comfort is not necessarily controlling my surroundings, but I struggled with that I can't, if I want to change, I can't make that person change with me.
Right.
Or I can't make, if I want to do this in my life, well, that person may not want to grow.
Right.
And you kind of almost get like a survivor's guilt.
Right.
Because you're like, well, I left things alone from the past so that I can move on to the next level, and then people will be like, well, they'll like throw hooks at you, like, oh man, you changed. You're not staying true to what we were doing. And
there's a famous quote from Snoop Dogg like that.
Yeah.
He says something to that effect, that if his friends say, oh man, you changed, and you're not down with me anymore or whatever. You don't mess with me anymore, and it's like, I gave you chances to grow with me. If you're not growing with me, then I'm going up, and like you can only have so much of a buffer there until somebody's got to balance out. And he said that he's not going back down to anyone's level. So.
And if consciousness is like something that is super important to you, that's something that you're gonna have to accept. You will outgrow people, and it's like, I mean, it's kind of like bittersweet, kind of.
It is.
It is. It's like, I'm so glad with what I'm doing, but then you're like, man, I kind of left some people behind, but this is what I'm called to do.
Right.
So
there's also attachment with that. So working through, like, all of these are things to work through. We have, when we have guilt because of how we feel like, even if it's like your mother or your father or somebody very close to you, and it's like, I have to work on all this, process all these emotions that I'm feeling, all this stuff that's coming up. So the guilt, and then forgiving yourself, and working on attachment and not being attached. I have this visual of a balloon with a string with a weight on the end, and it's like telling somebody, they're like, you can become a balloon too, but if you don't, I'm gonna have to cut the string, and you'll become a balloon when you're ready.
Yeah.
But I have to do.
I love it.
What I'm supposed to do.
That's beautiful. Yeah. That is beautiful.
And they say it's lonely at the top, but I mean, I don't necessarily always agree with that. I think that sometimes when you're on your journey, it can feel lonely. But once you start to get where you're going, and you're finding other people that are coming in alignment with you and where you're wanting to go, and like I said, surround yourself around the people that are doing the things that you want to do, the places that you want to be. Start to go to those places, and you'll find like-minded people there. So.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I think it is kind of lonely for people, like you said, to cut that string. It's kind of like, it's so thin, it's so easy, but you just cut it, and then sometimes it'll take you a while, but you'll find other balloons.
Yeah, exactly.
Once you get up there.
Well, and it's trusting the process, that if you want something for yourself, if you're going to start tapping in and you're like, I know this is who I am meant to be and what I'm supposed to be doing, it's trusting and allowing that support to come in wholeheartedly. And that means like getting into your heart space, and a lot of people forget. We get up here and all of this goes and goes and goes and goes in our monkey mind, and we just need to like drop back down.
Tell us what the monkey mind is. I've heard that used many times. What does that mean?
It's just the thoughts, all the crazy thoughts.
Oh, so like just the mental clutter.
I mean, everything that kind of impedes. You can tell a difference. And sometimes you can tell when people are, if you're trying to figure things out, and people will like look up when they're thinking, because they're looking like something's talking to them up here, and it's just taking that moment. If you feel like your thoughts are running, or you don't know how to make a decision, or you start to hear things in your head, and like so many thoughts and it kind of starts to make you anxious. Just taking that moment to take a deep breath in. I do the 4-6-8 breath whenever to try to like get back down to my heart center, which is inhale for 4 in, hold for 6, and exhale for 8 through like pursed lips. I do that 3 times in a row and just kind of helps me go back down to center, brings me back into my heart space where you feel home, you know, that feeling of like just stillness for a second, that everything's okay. You know, when I stay here for a moment, then I can get clarity on what's next. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't suck, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt, and it's not painful, and this isn't all beautiful and spiritual, and we're floating around.
Right.
You know, it's like sucks, and cry and let it out, and when you feel those things come up, let them come up. You know, the more we just keep pushing them down, the more it's gonna just suck even worse. You know, like just let it out.
So with the monkey minds, what you're saying is like so the mental scramble. So when it's kind of, to me, that could be a place where people's intuition gets confused with their logical or their you know. So it's like, okay, if you were to stop and think about it, like you're saying, take some time, do a breath exercise, meditate, or maybe just give it some time to think. Maybe you would get to more clarity. But say someone's having a struggle, they're upset about a situation, and you know, they don't give that time to clear, so they just jump to their, well, I need to figure this out now, and then, you know.
Yeah. There's like a check-in point. Am I trying to figure something out?
Right. Because I used to be there.
Yeah, I did. I was too, and I catch myself. I mean, this is a constant evolution.
Yeah, being business people, that's one of the main struggles I've had to deal with is the monkey mind, because it's like, okay, percentages, accounts receivable, accounts payable, you know, taxes, money, numbers, and then it was, but that went back to the, I think I shared this tool before, and like I said, it's not going to work for everybody, but what I do personally is in my head, as loud as I can say it, stop.
Yeah.
Stop. And then that'll give you a chance to be like, okay, I'm going to grab this and just look at this for a second. Because Marty's like my best friend, and he knows that I'm a rambler. Sometimes we'll get on the phone, and I'll be like, hey, I got this idea. And then by the time that I've finished that idea, I've jumped all the way over here to talk about this idea and vice versa, you know.
Well, and that's like more, now when you feel that way, there's also what just popped in was like that creative flow, that flow state process too, you know. So also understanding, is that coming through flow state, or is that a whole bunch of stuff in my head feeding me lies and trying to distract me from getting to where I need to go?
So what would, I mean, I have an understanding, so the way to gauge that would be like how you feel.
Yeah.
So if you feel good about it and it's in a good vibe, then that's a good type of chatter. But if you're feeling bad, then it's a... If
it's not making you feel, is it an empowered or disempowered thing? Is it something that's empowering
perfect.
You know? Like, that's what it would be.
I like that.
Is it something that's empowering you, or is it thoughts that are trying to disempower you, make you feel smaller, like you can't, or it's too much, or it's overwhelming, or no, who's going to listen to you, or who's going to take you seriously, or don't talk about that, it's going to, you know, like, nobody, all of that stuff we can kind of gauge by, is this like a cheerleader cheering me on? So like, yes, do that. It doesn't matter. Be fearless. Not be fearless, but be terrified of it. You know, like, yes, it's okay to be scared, instead of being like, oh, that's gonna freak you out. Don't do that. There's so much stuff. There's so many layers to it all, like onion, you know.
Yeah, there's no way we can put it in one podcast, because it's a lifetime journey.
Yeah, and that's another reason why we created Inner Space, was because as people are peeling back the layers and going through this and experiencing this, okay, now I'm working on this, what about forgiveness? So I think we're going to start a Ho'oponopono every week, or maybe several times a week. It's a forgiveness practice, and it is powerful. And
do you want to share about that right now, or do you want to wait for people to come to the class?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because I'm knowledgeable of Honoponopono. Yeah, my Reiki master taught me that. Yes,
and it's very forgiveness, we forget that we talk about forgiving other people for something that they did, but have we ever forgiven ourselves for any judgment placed on a situation? Or because everything is really just like a thought, and what is true? It might be true for us, but is it truth? And there's all this other stuff that gets really complicated, but the simplest thing is forgiveness and the forgiveness practice.
Yep.
You can talk about it.
Oh, okay. So Honoponopono, I don't remember the doctor's name, but the gist of the story is he was a psychologist, and he used this practice to heal a mental ward from a distance. The practice is, I love you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry and thank you. And you're not saying this to an individual. You're saying this to your inner self and to the universe. This is an ancient, like, Hawaiian practice. And basically what it does, if you have to say it from, like, a practical perspective, is when we're going through things, we bring up energy. And what it does is it waves the energy and clears. That's the way I would say.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. And then you get back to 0 point, which is the point of choice.
Yeah.
You know, that's a really powerful thing, because, as you know, like you said earlier, in business, things come up, and they don't go exactly the way wait, I planned it to go this way, and then someone else or some outside force did something that threw me off. And, like, earlier on in my journey, I may have gotten up, like I said, jumped on someone. Hey, what the heck? You said this or that. You know, but getting back to that point is like, okay, so how do we want to handle this? Because if you just go off that emotional response,
yes.
Oh man,
Yeah.
That's where the trouble comes in with so many of the problems we see in the community. So, but yeah, so even without knowing a lot about that, I've practiced a lot of that, and I think that is a key thing for a lot of people dealing with a variety of different.
I mean, anything.
things.
If you are interested in the practice, you can literally just sit down and close your eyes, and the first situation that pops in your brain, I remember the first time I did it, and the first situation that popped into my brain was something that happened when I was 2, and it was an interaction I had with my grandmother. And I'm like, and then I start to kind of judge myself a little bit on, is that what I should be forgiving? You know, we kind of go through, like, even happens for me. It's like, no, I don't want to forgive that. I want to forgive this. It's like, no, this is what you need to do. And what I like how you said, it just kind of clears it. And what it does is just kind of removes, like, the memory from your DNA, not the memory of the situation, but the feeling. The charge behind it. And so and then going back to 0 point, I love that you brought that up, the point of choice, because ultimately to think of those situations and not feel anything in our body, like constriction or contraction anywhere in our bodies, when we think of those situations, we're free of any emotional trauma or anything that we're holding on to when we think of that situation. It could even be like, oh gosh, I got my boss the wrong kind of coffee on Thursday, and you know, like holding on to that, like Ho'oponopono that, you know, like
you know,
like Oprah, you get a Ho'oponopono, you get a Ho'oponopono.
Right, yeah. Me and Marty have talked about this a lot, about learning from our kids. Okay, so a lesson that I learned from my youngest son. We'll just be in conversation, and we're diddle-daddling around the house, doing chores, da-da-da-da-da. And in conversation, he was like, well, that one time you yelled at me, right? And that's kind of I would say that would be a perfect mirror or reflection of how we collect all these points of view throughout life, you know? Oh, well, you can't do that. Like, somebody will tell you, oh, you can't do that, or you have behavior disorders. I'm talking from my own perspective, you know. You never know how to listen, or you do this wrong. Well, that builds up.
Oh, yeah.
And that, I believe, is the, what's the word I'm looking for? It is the contrast that we need to break through to higher planes.
Absolutely.
You know?
Struggle, I definitely believe that.
Mhm.
People that struggle and have to push can
Yeah.
make it, they get stronger.
Right.
They can make it even higher. So.
Yeah.
Also, I want to rewrite the narrative on that. I feel, as we're moving into 2020 and the energies that are here supporting us now, in this, we're in the golden age of Aquarius, right? And I'm not an astrologer or anything like that, but the energies are here to support us to kind of get out of that. You have to struggle, you have to sacrifice to be your best self, to show up for your best self. You have to do all the things and doing and figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it. Like, taking a step back away from even those stories and those conditionings. Like, when Alicia and I opened up Inner Space, people were like, oh, you guys must be so stressed out along the whole process, and we really weren't.
Right.
Like, it was amazing.
Felt good.
It felt great
Right.
the entire time, because all the energy that we attached in any transaction with building the business and everything, we literally built the whole inside of that building. We were very conscious of the energy that was connected to it. And then not being like, oh yes, when we open, we're never going to see our families and all of that. Like, no, we don't have to do that. We don't, like, I'm not there right now. Alicia's not there right now. And we don't have to, we're home every evening. And if we want to be, we choose to be at Inner Space.
Right.
When we're working, it's not like, and we have set it up and we have been supported along the way to not have to work hard and sacrifice.
Like, let go. Like, there's an exercise for that too.
Yeah.
Letting go of, and let things come into your life. So.
But so much of that is like what we witnessed growing up, what our parents witnessed. It's just all of that societal conditioning of how things have to be. And that plays into, all of that plays into, our own worthiness. And like you mentioned it so many times, you hear this over and over again. And then you're like, well, I'm not worthy of anything because I can't even shoot a basket in a hoop, because one time my dad looked at me wrong and it just looked at me like failure, and then that lives inside of me.
And then you almost take on other people's perspectives as your own.
Yeah.
But that, back to the solution of that is, that's what Honoponopono will help with.
Yeah.
Honoponopono will help with that.
I have it printed out and hung in my kitchen so that my whole family can see it anytime. I'm like, anytime.
Yeah.
They are. And going back to checking in, when we were talking about earlier in the podcast, checking in with who's speaking, who's replying when you're checking in. Is it your conditioning? Is it yourself? Is it your future self? Is it who you know you are? Who's answering?
So you guys have a ton of awesome workshops and different activities almost every day, right?
Yep.
So what are some ones that you would suggest for people who are kind of just getting started on their journey and they want to come into that? Can you tell us some of the practitioners and what classes in particular you think would be good for someone just starting?
So right now we are working on having something every day, like midday and evening. And on Mondays we have a midday meditation with Janet Casson. It's 45 minutes. It's $7. It's at 12:30.
Wow, that's affordable.
Yeah, $7.
Nice.
12:30 to 1:15. It's very introductory, all the way down to I would even still attend it. It's very easy for somebody to step into, and it's also great for all of these classes that we have, no matter what they appear as the entry level. Think of it as like human continuing education.
Well, like you said, basic, master the basics, right?
Yes,
that's what
the
mastery
mastery
is.
of anything is the basics well done.
There you go.
So we have that on Mondays. At 10:30 on Mondays, we have sound showers, 10:30 to 11:30. You just lay on a mat, and Carlin Marin is the facilitator for that, and it's Tibetan singing bowls and tuning forks. And she comes and tunes with your energy field with sound healing. It's just like a shower of just releasing the energetic gunk that may be built up from the week before or the weekend. We also have those on Monday nights. We have sound plus breath on Thursday afternoon or Thursday lunchtime. No, I think that's at 10:30 too. We have so much going on.
But they can always check your website.
Check our website,
yeah.
InnerSpaceDSM.com. Click on calendar, and you can see what's going on the week and flip through and look at all the weeks. We have short things. We have longer workshops. We have really intense immersions. Kind of whatever flavor anybody's looking for.
Perfect.
Gotcha. Cool. And then when I was in, I had a chance to try one of those drinks that you guys have.
Oh, yeah.
Those are amazing.
Yeah,
I
we
really
have
like those.
juice from Fresh Cafe and Market, Carrie Rush. She brings us in fresh juice. She has Chill Out that she made specifically for Inner Space to complement our Salt Lounge, which I don't even think I talked about, but we have a Himalayan Salt Lounge in there, and it's really good for respiratory and cardiovascular health. Because if we're going back to the basics, if you can't breathe good, if your sinuses are inflamed constantly, or you maybe are a smoker or an ex-smoker, or you have asthma or allergies, or anything that might be impeding you getting a deep breath and oxygenating all of your blood properly, then you're not sleeping good. So who wants to get up early and meditate if they're not sleeping good? And then, the rest of the day just kind of, it's just you're in repeat mode. So
I read a study on that too that said that the salt attaches to like the mucus and helps it.
Yes.
Like salt's not good to eat, but it's actually good to breathe a little bit.
Yeah. So it doesn't actually go into your bloodstream when you're in the salt lounge. We have a generator that blows microfine salt into the air. It's pharmaceutical grade, and you just breathe it in. It reduces inflammation, breaks up mucus in the lungs. It's just so good to be able to take deep breaths, and then you feel better. You feel more alive.
Marty, we're gonna come down there and do that. We gotta definitely.
When do you want to go? This week? They're going this week.
Yeah.
I'm bringing Leah too. I said I was gonna do that. You said that kids can come if they're having, or even just some preventative, but they're having some sinus issues. Then isn't it Wednesdays?
It's Monday evenings.
Oh, Monday evening.
And we have it.
Oh, there.
Yeah, 4:15.
Wanna go tonight, or do we got? We got a lot of stuff going on tonight.
Let's do it tonight. Let's plan tonight.
Okay, so parents get to go in free with the paid price of their child, but it's not the relaxing Zen environment that it normally is. So we change the wall colors to primary colors, and then we have games and toys out for kids to play, so that they're not trying to sit there and be Zen.
Trying to get a 4-year-old or a kid to do that. They're like, okay, this is boring. What is going on here?
Yeah, we have 4 sessions every Monday night. We have 4:15, 5:15, 6:15, and 7:15. And it's $35. And the parents get to come for free, so you also get the benefits. And each parent can bring up to 3 children. And it's
Do you find that there's kids that are, or parents that are interested in having their kids learn to meditate and do yoga, these type of holistic things?
Yeah, we have some kids classes that we try to pair with adult classes as far as the same time slots. So we don't offer any sort of daycare, but if mom and dad or guardian wants to go to like a breath work class and they're like, well, I have my kids and we both mom and dad want to go, we want to have an environment that supports all the parents working on themselves, and then we might have a kids mindfulness class or a hands-on art class or something that kind of digs more into that mindfulness practice at the same time with the children, or kids yoga.
That's awesome, because there's actually times where I'm like, I'd like to go, but I have my daughter, our daughters, so, and same thing with Rodney. And we had talked a little bit about how our kids run around with us a lot, but I didn't know if that would have been something that would be appropriate. But
that's awesome.
Cool.
Yep.
It's
and
amazing.
some of our practitioners see children in the back, like the healing practitioners. My son is 9, and he's seen a couple of them back there, and
Awesome.
he'll lay on a Reiki table and
nice.
and
Awesome.
That's
the future right there.
Right.
Yeah.
And nurturing that in them too, and their gifts, and not turning off their light when they're little and they tell you something that they're like, how did you know that? Or what is that? Or if they say that they heard something, or they see something, or they feel a certain way, it's nurturing that within them too, and remembering to not let that flame go out. Because it's really hard to reignite that flame when you're older.
I agree. And if you didn't get a chance to check out our Nurturing Creativity, which kind of goes hand in hand with that, you can check that out. It released last week. So if you're just checking out this week, be sure to check out your Spotify Conscious Crew podcast for last week's episode, and be sure to watch that one as well.
Inner child stuff, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Yeah. We were talking last week. We were talking about nurturing creativity.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
So one thing that we had talked about a little earlier and that keeps coming to mind is that, man, I'm so busy. I wish that I had time to come to Inner Space and so I'm like, if I just get this done, if I just get that done, and I just work hard now, maybe later I'll have more time to do self-work. I know that's not right, but do you have any tools on, like, when is a good time to go ahead and get into that, to take the time for myself to grow?
I think it's important to find a balance and remember that we are human beings, right? We're not human doings.
Love it.
So there is, and remembering that there is productivity in rest, and there's productivity in taking care of ourselves, and whatever that means, it self-care can mean anything. It can be tying your shoes if you don't normally, it can be getting up out of bed 5 minutes earlier. Like, it doesn't have to be these grandiose things, and it doesn't have to be this luxury bubble bath or anything. But always taking that time to remember that you're a human. And a lot of times, most of the time, that constant response to having to do. If we peel back the layer, and it's not we've kind of worked through that layer of conditioning of we have to work hard to get results and sacrifice. So beyond that, if we're still finding that we're just constantly doing and never satisfied or never taking time for ourselves, most of the time it's a distraction and it's a trauma response to something that needs attention, but we're not giving it attention. So that I don't have time for this, I don't have time to take care of myself, I have to do this, or I have to have this done, and all of that, it's distraction. So another check-in point would be, am I distracting myself right now? And a good thing to look at for that, too, is like screen time on our phones. They have that magical thing where we can look at how long we've been on it. When somebody showed me that, I was like, oh my gosh. Right. Distraction is huge for me. It's definitely something I catch myself doing it all the time because what's comfortable? Distracting myself. What's terrifying? Growth and expansion.
So it's definitely uncomfortable. Growth is very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and
if you're comfortable, then you probably need you're ready to do a little more, right?
And so I think it's less of how can I make time to do the things, because we have an unlimited amount of time. It's infinite. Time really doesn't exist in my world. It's what am I doing with that time, that time that I have, and what am I distracting myself, and what am I distracting myself?
Time is another podcast. We could talk about a podcast. We could talk for 2 hours on what time is.
I'd probably go and say prioritization is probably maybe one place where we're missing the key, because like you're saying, you don't have to set the candles around the bath and do all that. It's just take 5 minutes.
Is this a priority?
Take 15 minutes to do something. Right.
I don't mean to get too personal, but I think that you have been getting better, Marty, because, well, not better, but you have been practicing that, just in the fact that, like, I'll call you on a Saturday night and I'm ready to work, and you're like, hey, buddy, I'm chilling tonight.
Yeah.
That's self-care.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah,
understood. Yeah. I'll go over here and do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But no, you have to do that. There's some days where I'm like, I'm not going to do anything today.
Where I'm at on my journey is, I think I would like I said, to make it to more, schedule more things that I want to do. But, it's like, I do my meditations, on my, what is that?
Use Insight Timer.
Insight Timer. On my Insight Timer app. But, and then after that, it's just like, come do this, go do that, meeting. And then I'm like, get home too. So we still do obviously waste a lot of time on our phones. I think that's a great point.
And it's even in that you mentioned, Rodney, with, are we doing, when you're not doing something, when you're like, I'm just going to chill tonight. What are we doing when we're chilling? Are we still distracting ourselves?
Right.
I know for me, because I receive so much information just like shooting in, that I distract myself so that I don't even get that. So even in sometimes when I'm in rest chill mode and I'm like, I'm resting, rest is productive, but I'm still
thinking about business.
I'm
or
like,
something.
that book that I really should be reading, or not should. I don't like to should on myself. So that book that I want to read, that I've been really interested in, that I bought, I really want to read that, but I have a fear if I read that book, it's going to unlock a different part of me that's going to be more free and expansive. And what comes with that is uncomfortableness and growth, and more layers being peeled back of more boundaries that I set for myself and standards that I set for myself. So it's just a spiral. You just go deeper and deeper. But that constant doing, I always recommend that people check in with themselves. And is it as a distraction? It's a trauma response.
Yeah, I definitely became aware of the fact that like being like a workaholic can be self-abusive. And me and Marty have had conversations about that, and that's when I tried to consciously be like, okay, I'm gonna slow down sometimes and just be like, if it's just like I think we talked about it in a different podcast, just playing with my son. That's like a way that I get present, or walking. I think with like goal-oriented people, it can be a huge challenge to do that, because in your logical mind, if you stop, then you're falling behind. And but like you said, it can be very well. Like when you stop for a while, you're recharging. That's how I feel. It's almost like a metaphor with like the Dragon Ball Z, right? Where you sit for a while and you just charge back up and then go. But I'm not perfect. I have this thing where I just go to drop.
Right, and that too. It's lessening that go drop. Because people will be like, well, yeah, I rest and recharge, but do we have to live these lives where we're in fight or flight, go, doing for even 50% of the time, and then resting 50% of the time? That's still a lot. For a lot of people, it's like an 85-15 cut split of how much they're going, but then they're like, oh yes, but I recharge. But what if we lived a life where we didn't have to recharge, where we just had this beautiful
even flow
harmony of the way that we lived our lives? Everything was harmonious in a way. I mean, there's still there's still shit and that comes up, and there's still stuff, and that's not to say, but we felt more even keeled all the time, because that constant being in fight or flight in our body and our nervous system, speaking of our human bodies, is not good, and that causes stress on everything, which causes disease in the body. And
what's helped me though is that I go more than most people probably do, but for me, I'm doing things that I enjoy. So I enjoy every hustle of it, every minute of it. And I would, and being a business owner and whatnot is not necessarily for everyone, but I would challenge people to find creative ways and, try to work things into your life that you enjoy. So when you get off, even if you're working a job maybe you do or you don't like, start kind of working into a hobby maybe that can pays, that makes money, or at least start to implement things into your lifestyle, like going to inner space, like recording a song or whatever it is that you enjoy.
Painting, anything creative.
A lot of that too, because I was somebody who was just constantly doing for the first 30 years of my life. And when somebody asked me what I like to do for fun, I had no idea. I'm like, I have no idea. And then I started to have this huge guilt and judgment and shame on myself, because I'm like, how do I not know what I like to do or what's fun? And then it was this spiral of not good feeling of unworthiness of even being able to have fun. And
I
not
relate
knowing,
to that.
But tapping into the inner child. So somebody had told me once, what did you like to do when you were young that you stopped doing? And I was like, oh.
Yeah. For me, it was music. What was it for you?
Writing.
What about you, Rodney?
For me?
Yeah.
Definitely music, writing. My big challenge is my workaholicness. So I had to go back to being able to play.
Play.
Whatever it is, play.
Play
Basketball.
Play.
You know what I mean? Do
Play
it. you know.
Play is huge. We forget and we encourage it with our children, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually along the way we're like, okay, that's enough play. Now it's time to be an adult.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, no, I'm still that person. I still want to play.
I have to bring that up.
How do I play?
Yeah, I have to bring that up because I related to what you said because for a long time I was like reading books like, do what makes you happy and this and that. I'm like, dude, I do not know what makes me happy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, learning to play and see the thing is I've been studying, like modalities for almost 20 years. So each of them, some of the modalities will make you almost judge yourself.
Yeah.
But the space that I've been in the last, I would say 2 years is definitely that consciousness can definitely be fun.
Yeah.
It can definitely be.
That's a big part of what we want to offer with the conscious creation.
Yes.
That's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
So, that people can come out, still have fun, do the kickback, or listen to music that's not just, only meditation music, but has aspects of it.
Yeah.
That's positive, that's enlightening,
Yeah.
and it's not perpetuating the crap.
Yeah.
That we hear in a lot of the music now. So.
Yeah. That's what
have you ran into that where like your clientele or people that come to your space are real serious? Because I've ran into that, like where people are like, well, no, you have to you have to be harmless.
No.
You have to be, it's like, that doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't feel light. Like, let's have some fun.
Yeah.
Let's have some fun with it.
We have all sorts of facilitators. What's great with the facilitators is that they get to show up and do what they do, how they do it. As long as, Alicia and I meet with everybody first to make sure that, that it aligns with the whole mission of Inner Space first. And then after that, we provide all the rest of the support so that they can just show up and do what they do best so they don't have to worry about all the other stuff. And when they show up in that way, it is fun and it is lighter and it is more flowy because all of the pressure is released from them. They don't have to organize and check people in and worry about registration, all that stuff. They don't have to worry about any of that. They just show up and then it is fun. Yeah. And I agree, this stuff is fun. And removing the judgment, too, I'm glad you brought that up, of that this can't be fun.
Yeah.
Like, when I think about what's fun, I'm like, well, I really like getting in my flow state. And
it's
fun.
Yeah. And
fun doesn't have to be monkey bars.
Right. And going back to, like me and Marty being earthly people, we actually enjoy this. I'm taking notes and organizing in my mind. It's fun to me. Like, I'm having a blast over here. Doing the podcast, we're having a blast. I know Marty enjoys planning.
I wouldn't do a lot of the things I do if I didn't enjoy it. We put way too much time into this
right?
for it to be like a job we don't like.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
And there is the serious work of it, on ourselves, but the constant reminder to play and have fun with it and laugh. It's fun and surrounding yourself with people that you can have both conversations with, that you can have those deep dive conversations with, and that also the people that will remind you, hey, you've been a little deep, a little heady for a while. Let's play.
That's I love my son so much because he teaches me how to be, because he can be ticked off. Those people, Dad, they cut us off, blah 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 blah. But then, in an instant, he's back to joy.
So I think people go through different stages. For the last couple months, or through the winter, I kind of told her, we talked about this, that let's build this thing. Let's get all these outlines of all these different things that we need to do to be successful. And then, like we talked about, we're going to be going into our creative stage now. So we want to create music, and we're really going to do a lot of recording, production,
seminars, lots of stuff.
And we're stepping out, and so we want this spring to summer through the rest of the year to be really okay, now we've got everything in order. We did that this winter, and so I think that people go through stages as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Just like the seasons, like you just kind of described. Taking that winter to hibernate and recluse and take care of and to nurture yourself and your creation, and then you
Right.
kind of, the spring comes up and you're like, here it is a little bit, and summer it kind of
Fly, little birdie.
and more than ever, the energies are here supporting us to do that, like
Yeah, I feel
energetically
it.
around the whole
Yes,
world.
I feel it.
It's
I feel it.
it's time to step up and show yourself, be seen.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming on today. This was an amazing podcast. This is, again, Brandy from Inner Space. Be sure to check out her website, Innerspace DSM, innerspacedsm.com. And you guys also have an app. Tell us about the app before we close out.
It's on both Android and iOS. And it's really simple. The easiest way to schedule, you can download it. It's just called Inner Space. It's black with white triangles. And on there, you can look at our entire calendar. You can scope out all the facilitators. It's really nice because the facilitators are attached to each class.
Oh,
so if you
nice.
look at one meditation and then you want to learn about the facilitator, and you might vibe with one and not the other, we kind of lay everything out transparently on there so you can see
Awesome.
the whole schedule, everything.
And again,
You can book Salt Lounge through there too.
really? Okay. We're definitely checking that out this week. So, again, thank you so much for being a sponsor for our Conscious Kickback,
Yeah.
March 13th.
Thanks for
And-
having me. This is fun.
Yeah, definitely. Always check us out as well on consciouscrewmovement.com. Rodney Ryan, again, down on the end. Be sure to check him out. Instagram, Facebook. And also, take a moment to follow our group on Facebook, Conscious Crew Collective, on Facebook again.
For daily positivity and just more
Enlightenment, right?
Enlightenment, empowerment.
It's a great community we're putting together over there on
It's
Facebook.
getting bigger. So.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for coming, and hope everyone has a great day. Peace.